Yo, I'm gonna try to revisit my entire Mojo building process here. And so, for anyone watching this, including myself, I apologize because my thoughts will be scattered and they will come at random times, and we'll try to piece it all together as best as we can. Um, but when I think of the Mojo launch, I think probably I should start with the idea. Um, because I once I had the idea, I feel like everything else just kind of jumped away from there. So what you see here is a post from Marcus Andrews 9 months ago now, and he goes, "I'm worried product marketing is losing some of its mojo." He talks about boring. He fell in love, but these insights to life through amazing story. And just honestly, I felt like there was some anger boiling up inside of me at this point. I didn't agree. Um, I felt like this is I started something and now it's gotten worse because of other people type of thing. And so I took offense to this, I'm not going to lie. And as you can tell, Mojo is in the very first sentence, and that is directly where I got my LLC name from and where Mojo all started from. And as you can see, when we go to my homepage, let's burn your boring product messaging. It's no surprise that he has the word boring in his second sentence. And so, as crazy as it may seem, this is how I operate, and a chip on my shoulder from this post was the start of Mojo. And then, in general, once I got past this part, it was like, what is my offer going to be? Like, boring. I love messaging, so I knew there was nothing going to stop me from, nailing messaging, right? But what does that all entail, right? Like, boring messaging, what does that all entail? And it took me a while to come up with an offer that I even had any semblance of what I should do. But I thought about something that Anthony Pieri and Fletch kind of like instilled in me, and that is their way of positioning. And so I'm not going to have to go through all this because it's a Fletch, story to tell. But you may have seen this right here, messaging canvas. And one day I realized two things. A, these guys have made it super easy for me to take complicated world of positioning and just turn it into building blocks. And all you got to do is stack those blocks and make different things. Then quickly after, I was like, wait a second. They have taken building blocks and then they apply those building blocks in a very certain formula to build a homepage. And within that homepage, there's even little micro formulas, right? Like what goes into the hero on a homepage, right? What goes into the H3 in the value prop section of your homepage. And so I was like, wow, so they have a formula for a homepage. Well, what if I had a formula for all of the other things too, right? The other web pages that they don't do. The emails that they don't do. The ads that they don't do. The talk tracks that sales needs that they don't do, right? All of these deliverables that ultimately everybody needs to have. So I was like, oh, that's super cool. That's super cool. And then I had to think about it more of like, okay, you can't just build a solution, right? You got to back that into a problem or there's really no point in doing anything. And it took me like a little bit to figure it out because I think what I had to do is I had to build the product first. So I built my own version of Mojo and I got it to work. And I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. And then I realized, oh, wait a second. That is the That is the comparison. That is the positioning against is I would normally just ship out a messaging document and then I would probably write talk tracks that would not get used because they don't apply to every single deal. And I would probably maybe write some headlines or something, but those only apply to certain places. Can't write a whole blog post off of a fucking headline or two. So I was like, there's the problem. Like, you have a boring way of doing things by just putting together a messaging document and shipping that to your teams and expecting them to go actually use it in their day to day. Because we have the benefit of building those documents ourselves. So in our head, every block makes sense. All of this shit makes sense to me because I know how this works, but nobody else does. Right. And when it comes to things like top of funnel ads, some people get it, some people don't. The majority of them don't realize that all of this stuff over here needs to be ignored. And so then fast forward to that was when I started doing the testing and all that good stuff. And that's also when I realized that AI doesn't know the difference either. So when people are building their own GPTs, great, fine, do it. You're going to realize really quickly you're not going to get the outputs you want because AI does not know, just like a marketer a lot of times does not know, and a salesperson does not know what these blocks even mean, when they should use these blocks, and when they should not use these blocks. And so that's when I realized that it's not only a great advantage to them against messaging docs, but just trying to make one of these yourself with the limited resources you have as a product marketer and limited time you have as a product marketer to experiment and do these things. I've done all the hard work and will continue to keep doing the hard work. And, hopefully that matters to product marketers and we can help them out. And so that's when I got to that point of like brand, right? And going to market. And I got very concerned once I got to the point of like, yeah, let's fucking do this, is how am I going to compete with someone like Fletch? Not saying we're necessarily like people are coming to us for the same thing because they're not. But how does that happen? How do I cut through all of the great stuff they're doing? How do I cut through all the great stuff Emma Stratton's doing and April Dunford and the other many messaging consultants that are coming out right now? And so, of course, you got to have a good product, which I felt really good about, but there was always something in me that said like, that's boring. That's vanilla. That's not you. You don't just do a logo. You don't just chat GPT something. You don't just use some font that you can find off Google. And so that's when I was fully committed and I was going to put resources towards it, financial resources towards it. And so, I basically knew that I wanted bold colors. I really am into like the 90s, like retro, big poppy colors, big contrast kind of thing. And so I tried working with it, right? But it was like, I don't know, 2 weeks in, and I'm like, gosh, like purple, mint, orange, something's off here. I need someone to come in who actually knows how to do this shit. So as much as I was trying to lean on AI and do it all myself, I knew there was nothing better than getting a real human with a real soul who knows what they're doing to help me with the brand. So I hit up my Ukrainian friends at the Unicorn Agency. I've worked with them in the past. I've honestly stayed friends with two of the main players there. And it was like an easy call for me because the trust was built. I knew they would crush it. And so we got to work. And I went to Iceland and came back, and I don't know what everything changed, but I had this idea in my head of a monster. As you guys see, here's Mojo now. And I didn't know exactly what it would look like at the time. I gave them a totally different mock-up than this. And obviously I'm so freaking happy with how it turned out. But I knew there was like this element, and I couldn't even explain it at first, but there was this element where I wanted a character. Like I knew it, biased. I could tell. Like I wanted a mascot. I wanted to do it. I think not enough people are doing it anymore, and the ones that have don't really have great mascots. So I realized after I was doing all this, there was an element of trust that I was trying to build. And I thought, oh, I just want a character. But really, what I wanted was a face for the AI, because most people are already concerned about AI. Does it work? Does it not? Is it going to steal my shit? There's too many concerns for me to have to face on a regular basis. And so this was my defense mechanism to delivering an AI product. And so now this is Mojo, and I deliver you Mojos. And so now hopefully you think in your head something like this cute, cuddly monster that causes a little bit of trouble. It blows up or throws up. People are saying puking rainbows. Uh, just a soul to the soulless AI robots that we all have grown to love and hate at the same time. So that was why I really wanted it. And then, of course, the team brought it to life, and I could not be, more happy with how they did it. The color palette they picked was just incredible, and we got some really good stuff from here. So that's really like where it all came up and the different ideas. And then we had all of this stuff, right? I had a product. I tested it with Novatic first. Then I moved over to Screenspace, and then we got with Port Pro, just shipped theirs yesterday. And there was this sense of confidence growing in me, and that we could do something big, and that all of my mental space now and getting the product ready and figuring out my positioning and my messaging and writing the copy for the website. There was just this moment, this like, okay, you have done everything you can do now. Let's make this a moment. And so I was hitting up people a few weeks in advance and just kind of getting their buy-in on, would you like to promote this for me? And it was a surprise to how many people said yes, to be honest with you. I was extremely overwhelmed with just the yeses, but you never know how they're going to show up, right? And so I had this crazy idea since I've been working on vibe coding quite a bit. And like, I'm delivering a GPT instead of a messaging document. Why don't I deliver something AI based, something cool, something fun, something not boring for my launch asset? And so I'll jump in here so we can all look at it. Mojo Launch Quest. So I built vibe coded this web page where you get greeted by me, and then you kind of get this preparing for takeoff section. So everyone could hop in and get the usual, what is Mojo all about? What problem are you solving? Why are you even doing this, Eric? And then there was the schedule, right? I want to make sure everyone knew that it wasn't just going to be a flash in the pan, that we were building up hype for this. We were teasing it out. We had a launch day and then a post element where we still had people engaging and getting hype. And then there was the element of, okay, everyone's going to post, so we can either drop them all in a Slack channel like psychos, or we can, come in here, keep things a little bit more organized. And then all of that jumped into a scoreboard, right? And so we kept score on how everyone was performing with the ultimate goal of hitting some goals, right? I set some KPIs for all of us. So I wanted comments. We just fell short of 1,000 there. Reactions were a little over 75% of the way there. And just the quantity of posts set a high marker. And ultimately, I think we did a really great job. And then what you see here is a bunch of prizes that are being won. So I set up, prizes. I wasn't paying people for their support, but I did want to give them a little bit of something something to work towards and just get excited about. And so really that was kind of what I built. And then the assets, we created all these assets for launch day. um, and so I went through and I just thought to myself, like, okay, if we're going to tease something, let's do half the face of Mojo. So we're not going to show all of Mojo quite yet. We're just going to tease it. And we're just going to come out with some really bold, like, messaging I pulled from my Mojo GPT on top of funnel ads. And the same thing I thought about, okay, it's launch day. We need launch day assets. So I hit everyone up and said the same thing. We've got separate assets here. We've now revealed Mojo in all of his glory. And I really wanted to like tease the problem, right? Essentially say things that we don't actually hear about messaging documents, right? You can go, and I could have just stated the problem very plainly, but I decided to go with something a little bit more cheeky, a little bit, just things that people would enjoy, something that I felt I would like to see if I wasn't actually part of all of this. And then, of course, we got some post launch assets. So I kind of went with like a 90s vibe because, again, that 90s look. So we just put some interesting magazine, newspaper articles type styles together to get everyone excited about, just Mojo being out and being alive. So that's really how I ran the launch process there, and I think it really did well. We also created a launch Slack channel, so we had about 45 people in that Slack channel, and ultimately it really did all come together really nicely. And like I said, you never know who's going to show up for these things, but we had I think 26 different people post, and we had, I don't know, 40 other or 15 other people engaging with these posts. So, just really, it all came together beautifully. And I know there's a lot of planning and I can take a lot of credit, but there's also a lot of just people showing up that it takes courage. It takes confidence in me. It takes, of course, a strong relationship between the both of us to get an outcome like this. And so, yeah, I think ultimately that's kind of really how it all came together. And then I think last thing was like a timing thing. I thought about doing it the week after Highline because I was at Highline, and then I ended up doing it the following week, so the first week of September, right after Labor Day. And I don't know why I really landed on that date. I think it was a readiness thing and just getting everyone prepared and all that. But I felt like there was a good wiggle space in between Highline and Drive, which I was, going to attend, in which we could really just take over the internet for that week. And I think we did. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap this up now. I think that really compiled all of my thoughts in a nutshell. But yeah, have fun for whoever plans on using this.